Good afternoon and welcome to the Labor Forum. You are tuned into WRFG 89.3 FM in Atlanta. My name is Dianne Mathiowetz. I'm a retired auto worker and a co-host of this program, which will be bringing you for the next hour news, information, and analysis about the issues affecting working and poor people, not just in Atlanta, but around the U.S. and the world. I want to introduce the other two co-hosts that are here in the studio with me today. Hi, Paul McLennon.
Hi, Diane.
And Tamieka Atkins. Hi, Tamieka.
Hi.
So the three of us are now taking responsibility for bringing you the latest in labor news and, as I mentioned, the issues that impact working people. The opinions that are expressed on this program are not necessarily those of the Board of Directors, staff, or volunteers here at WRFG. But I should say that the three of us are people who are engaged in many struggles and have been for many years. Paul is a retired member of the ATU, which is the Amalgamated Transit Workers Union. And Tamieka is, what's your official title? Director?
Chapter Director.
Chapter Director of the organization here in Atlanta, which is the Domestic Workers Alliance. And so we have varied experiences, and we will be engaging our guests in conversation. Before we begin that part of the program, though, we do have these two segments that we have sort of identified as the way we start the program off. So we're going to start with labor headlines. Today, December 1st, is World AIDS Day, established in 1988 to promote public awareness about the causes, prevention methods, and treatment of HIV/AIDS. This global epidemic has killed an estimated 43 million people since 1981. As of 2014, some 35 million people are living with HIV/AIDS, while only 13.6 million of those are receiving the antiretroviral therapy that can bring them an average lifespan. Although HIV/AIDS infections are found globally, the vast majority of cases are found in sub-Saharan Africa. In 2013, almost 25 million people with HIV/AIDS lived in Africa, with women accounting for 58% of that number. AIDS-related deaths have taken the lives of up to 12% of the population of some African countries, robbing families and their nations of the adult working force. Georgia ranks 5th in the U.S. for the highest number of diagnosed HIV/AIDS cases, with the disease striking hardest among African American and Latino populations, gay and bisexual communities, and women. Some low-income neighborhoods in Atlanta have incidence rates as high as the most impacted African countries. And just listen to this startling statistic. 4,400 Atlanta youth, that means teenagers, were diagnosed, and people in their early 20s, were diagnosed with HIV in just the last 5 years. And of that 4,400, only a third of them are receiving proper treatment. This lack of accessible health care, austerity cuts across all social services, decreased public education about HIV/AIDS prevention, and the enduring bigotry and social stigma are all factors in the persistent high standing of Georgia and Atlanta in the number of young and working-age people being diagnosed with the disease. And I just want to mention that there is a World AIDS Day vigil taking place today from 6 until 8 p.m. at the 4th Ward Park Amphitheater. Nationally, headlines across the country for the last week have been about the response to last Monday's decision by the grand jury hearing evidence in the killing of Michael Brown to not indict Darren Wilson. From Ferguson to Atlanta, to the streets of London, Mexico City, and Manila in the Philippines, demands have been raised about the impunity of police and other paramilitary forces in the deaths of working class and poor people of color. In the U.S., the slogan, Black Lives Matter, requires the organization of working and poor people, such as unions, social, community, and faith groups, to address the growing inequality, unemployment, low wages and poverty, homelessness, mass incarceration, and social service cutbacks that disproportionately impact millions of Black and brown peoples. Those mobilized against the racist and hyper-policing in neighborhoods of color are joining with the millions of low-wage workers who are boldly demanding $15 an hour and the right to join a union. At 4:30, the Labor Forum will be joined by two of the young Atlanta workers who are leaders of ATL Raise Up to tell us about the next National Day of Action on December 4th. And lastly, just a note about an observation of the presence of the Veolia Corporation in multiple worker struggles in Atlanta. Some of you may have read an investigative piece the AJC did in Sunday's paper about the huge overtime amounts DeKalb County has paid workers in its water department. The article mentions that 4 years ago, the county reduced the operations workforce by 25%, ensuring that the remaining workers would have to take up the slack by working 10, 12, 15, or more hours a day to maintain the aging water system. What you may not have noticed was the mention of Veolia Water, which was given a $3.4 million contract to review operations and produce $8 million in savings every year for the county. Veolia is a notorious anti-union corporation that has subsidies engaged in transportation, water, waste management, among other services. It is the corporation which has engaged in a vicious effort to bust the school bus drivers union in Boston. It is the object of the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement for its running of Jewish-only bus service in Israel. Airport shuttle bus drivers across the country are in a struggle with Veolia over low wages and unfair working conditions. And a former Veolia executive is handling MARTA Mobility, a service that is threatened to be privatized. Could it be Veolia? So we just want to let our listeners know that in future programs, the Labor Forum will bring you more information about how Veolia is a leader in anti-worker attacks, joining Walmart and McDonald's for public outrage. And that's our labor headlines for today. We're going to move on to Paul's This Week in Labor History.
Okay, thank you, Diane. In 1955, on this day, December 1st, 43-year-old Rosa Parks boarded a bus in downtown Montgomery, Alabama, and refused to move to the back. She was not the first person to do this, but her arrest at this time triggered a year-long boycott of the city bus system. This action helped to further strengthen and expand the Black freedom movement that eventually ended apartheid segregation in the South. While the Montgomery bus boycott was an important step along the way, it was not the birth of that struggle, which had been continuous since the days of slavery. She is often described as a woman whose tired feet caused her to defy segregation, and that this solitary, spontaneous act sparked the boycott. The truth of who she was and what lay beneath the 1955 actions in Montgomery is far different than the fable which is too often promoted as history. Rosa Parks had a history of being defiant and spent her life fighting white supremacy. She learned about racial pride and self-defense at her grandfather's knee in the 1910s. Her grandfather, Sylvester Edwards, was a fan of the Jamaican-born black nationalist Marcus Garvey, and he delighted young Rosa with stories of Garvey's greatness. She was especially proud of her grandfather's willingness to defend himself and his family from the daily terror of the Klan in Pine Level, Alabama. This spirit of defense and defiance, she said later, had been passed down almost in our genes, that a proud African American cannot accept bad treatment from anybody. In the 1930s, Rosa Parks joined her husband Raymond and others in secret meetings to defend the Scottsboro Boys, 9 young African American men accused of raping 2 white women in Alabama in 1931. In the 1940s, they hosted Voter League meetings where they encouraged neighbors to register even though it was a dangerous task. In 1943, she joined the Montgomery NAACP and was elected branch secretary. The job required Parks to investigate and document acts of racist and sexist brutality, as happened in Abbeville, Alabama in 1944 with the rape of a 24-year-old mother and sharecropper, Reese Taylor. The local NAACP branch office sent his best investigator and organizer to Abbeville. Her name was Rosa Parks. The civil rights movement started in part in protest against the systematic rape of black women by white men who used economic intimidation, sexual violence, and terror to derail the freedom movement. These forces persisted unpunished throughout the Jim Crow era when white men assaulted black women to enforce rules of racial and economic hierarchy. Black women's protests against sexual assault and interracial rape fueled civil rights campaigns throughout the South that began during World War II and went through to the Black Power movement. For decades, black women had endured abuse on the Montgomery City buses on their way to cook and clean for their white bosses. The summer of 1955, Rosa Parks attended an interracial leadership conference at the Highlander Folk School in Monteagle, Tennessee, which was a center for training activists for workers' rights and racial equality. There, she later said, she gained strength to persevere in my work for freedom, not just for blacks, but for all oppressed people. By December, Rosa Parks, who was one of the most radical activists in Alabama, had had enough. There had to be a stopping place, she said, and this seemed to be the place for me to stop being pushed around. I had decided that I would have to know once and for all what rights I had as a human being and a citizen, even in Montgomery, Alabama. The boycott, which was first endorsed by the Women's Political Council, was intended to last 24 hours, but instead became a year-long struggle for dignity and justice. It broke the back of the Montgomery City bus lines and bankrupted the company. Rosa Parks, instead of becoming a leader of the movement she helped start, was sainted and celebrated for her quiet dignity and middle-class propriety, her radicalism all but erased. Thousands of black women like her, whose courage and fortitude helped to transform America, are not given the recognition they are due. Constant death threats forced her to leave Alabama in 1957. When she arrived in Detroit, she continued working as an activist. Throughout the late 1960s and early 70s, she fought for open housing and against police brutality and railed against the war in Vietnam. She was an ardent fan of Malcolm X and Robert F. Williams, a militant NAACP leader from North Carolina who advocated armed self-reliance. She admired Williams so much that she delivered the eulogy at his funeral in 1996. Rosa Parks, who died in 2005, was a woman who marched proudly with strength, conviction, and purpose in resistance to the inhumanity of both racism and sexism. It is this Rosa Parks that we ought to celebrate and honor. Her history as a dedicated organizer engaged in the most pressing issues of her time, especially racial and sexual violence, can teach us how to do the same in ours.
Thank you so much, Paul. I want to really compliment you for each week bringing forth the real history of the people in struggle, and it's such an important addition to the Labor Forum. So folks, we are waiting for our phone call from Ken Mitchell, and he is going to talk to us about the continued push by MARTA to apparently decide to privatize the mobility vans that carry people with disabilities here in the city. So while we're waiting for that, Tamieka, do you have a list of upcoming events that you can tell us about?
Yes, but before I get into that, I just want to say, Paul, again, thank you for that really, really good history. One of the jobs that Rosa Parks held during that history was as a domestic worker. And so she herself cleaned houses, and becoming a part of and leading that bus boycott, it was so significant for Black women at the time. Many of them forced to stand for 14 hours or more. The most inhumane and undignified treatment for 10 to 14 hours a day. So thank you for that full history. So today what we've seen are a lot of walkouts across the country in support of Mike Brown and in protest to the non-indictment charge that the grand jury delivered on Monday in the case of Darren Wilson. Georgia State University orchestrated a die-in on campus, and 6 universities in Georgia, Kennesaw, Spelman, Emory, Morehouse, to name a few, sent open letters to their presidents, their university presidents, demanding that they support the organizing work that is happening to prevent more police violence from happening in our communities and on our campuses.
And I saw some pictures of high school students in the thousands taking to the streets in New York City. Before I came over here, I quick went on Facebook and saw some just incredible photos.
Today at 6 p.m., there is a community public forum that is going to discuss how to bridge the gap between our communities and the police, and to discuss the militarization of the police. The event is at Ebenezer Baptist Church, 400 Auburn Avenue, Atlanta, Georgia, 30312, and Attorney General Eric Holder will be the guest speaker tonight.
I just have to say, when I heard that, I guess I want to say a little bit taken aback, because I believe this program was originally proposed to be a way for the youth activists and other people in the community who are engaged in all kinds of attempts to improve many different kinds of conditions, police brutality, housing, homelessness, etc., to give them a chance to really talk about how to organize the community and how to address these issues. And I sort of felt, I don't know how Eric Holder got his invitation to come, but it seems to me that oftentimes that there is an attempt by both the government and other more moderate elements in the communities to tamp down, to tell people to, it's time to be quiet, it's time to reconcile, it's time to, I don't know, just stop marching in the streets and disrupting the economy and the and making this sort of a very in-your-face kind of situation that the youth have done all across the country, essentially saying enough is enough, and they're just not going to take it anymore. So I'm really curious, I'll be really curious to see both how Eric Holder responds to the crowd at Ebenezer tonight, and both how the crowd responds to whatever the Attorney General has to say.
In the words of one of our local organizers here, Mary Hooks, we have to look at these opportunities, these moments, as opportunities to change the narrative, to take hold of the narrative and to own it. And so I'm also very curious about how both parties will interact.
So, did you get a chance to get a hold of Ken? Well, okay, Paul, you know a little bit about what's happening on Thursday with the MARTA board, so we're sorry that we're not able to bring you Ken, who's one of the activists organizing for this MARTA board hearing, but Paul is too, so what's going on?
Okay, so the update is last month the MARTA board had its monthly meeting, and we had a press conference and a rally outside, and packed the boardroom, and they sent some of us to the overflow room because there were so many people, and they decided not to make a decision.
That's the second time, right?
To put it off. That's the second
Right.
time. So I think there's a lot of pressure coming from forces that we may not be aware of, possibly like Veolia, people who can benefit from this decision if it's made in favor of privatization. So what the disability community and the transit union have been doing, have been meeting, we're meeting again tonight to plan for December 4th and hopefully get the board to stop consideration of privatization.
Paul, if you don't mind, could you explain what it would essentially mean? I mean, there's people may be familiar, they may have seen these vans that, you know, go around town, and they may have seen them in front of their grocery stores or something like that. Exactly what would it mean if this service was taken out of the jurisdiction of MARTA and was removed? Essentially, I guess the Transit Workers Union would have a new boss.
Well, what has happened, and what's surprising when you think about the public sector, the transit union nationally represents more workers in the private sector now than they do in the public sector. And that's due to the fact that as work gets contracted out, the union has to chase it and organize it again, usually at a much lower standard in terms of benefits and wages. So that's kind of the national trend, and that's why we're so concerned about seeing any part of MARTA be sent out outside, because we see this as only the beginning of what potentially could be up to 1,000 jobs. What it would mean is that we can already see in Cobb County and in Gwinnett County, which is a situation where the county has privatized, contracted out the running of the system to Veolia, that the service is reduced. There's no Sunday service, for example, and the benefit package for the workers is not comparable to what MARTA workers receive. For example, defined pension would be replaced by a 401k.
Which just throws workers' money into the stock market to go up and down and has no security to it at all.
Right. So the only way a private company can make money in this situation that's designed not to make money, it's a service that's required by law, and that's, as Ken Mitchell says, it's a service, not a business. The only way you can make money is to cut the service and cut the labor costs. And that's what we'll be seeing, and hopefully we can stop on Thursday.
So what is the time and the location for any listener out there who would want to join both the disability community and the transit workers and other concerned folks?
We will be at the MARTA board meeting at 1:30 on Thursday, which is at the MARTA headquarters on Piedmont Road, 2424 Piedmont. And there is public comment that's taken at the beginning, which is the opportunity for people to express their opinion. And then on the agenda, as we saw last month, it will come up for a vote, and we'll see how they decide.
Paul, I have no idea who's on the MARTA board. Do you know who's on the MARTA board?
I
There are
can't.
some people?
There are representatives from the city of Atlanta, the counties of Fulton and DeKalb, some people from the state, and this again would be an issue in terms of privatization, that at least we have some influence on them, because our elected officials in our county or city appoint these board members. So working back, we can say to an elected official, we have a problem with your appointment if they're not voting in the way that we think they should. So that's something that we're going to be doing too, is applying more pressure to the MARTA board. But hopefully we can keep this work in-house and stop this pressure that really started a year or two ago with Mike Jacobs, state representative, who tried to pass a law that would mandate MARTA to privatize. Now the board is deciding whether to do it on its own.
Well, thanks so much for that update, and then we'll hope we'll get another report next Monday find out what happened at this Thursday's meeting. So we'll be taking a brief break, and then we're looking forward to talking with our two activist youth who are leaders of the fast food workers actions that'll be taking place this Thursday. Stay tuned. We're back. You're tuned in to the Labor Forum here on WRFG 89.3 FM. My name's Dianne Mathiowetz, and co-hosts Paul McLennon and Tamieka Atkins are here, and we have our next guests on the line on the telephones, and I believe both of them are there. So hello Amber, hello Antwon.
How you doing?
Thank you so much. I know you're on break.
Yep.
Okay. So Amber, are you there too? Okay, I don't hear. I don't hear.
Amber's not on the line.
Oh, Amber is not on the line. Okay, so we'll start with Antwon because you're on break. Antwon, you've been on this program before, and we want to thank you so much because you have, over the last couple of years, really become one of the most vocal fast food workers here in the city and have really stepped up and provided leadership. So, so just to start off, if you wouldn't mind telling our listeners where you work and why it is that you have become active in the struggle for $15 an hour and the right to join a union.
Well, pretty easy. I work at Long John Silver in Popeyes.
So you have two jobs at two fast food places.
Yes, just make one full-time job. So I work at like 20 minutes walk this from the park, which I have to walk every day. I can't afford to get on the bus. Like she said, I've been working in fast food for 14 years and I haven't yet get a decent wage of living. Make $7.25 an hour. Can't afford it. Can't afford to pay your rent. So you got to make tough decisions over your rent, light bill, gas, water, and go to work. Not to mention feeding yourself. Just tired of living in poverty. I have nothing to lose.
All right, so Antwon, that sums it up really, the case for literally millions of people who are working across the country, and it's retail workers, it's all kinds of people who do jobs that everybody relies on, whether it's in stores, car washes, just every kind of job, but who really can't afford to live any kind of quality life at all. So if you wouldn't mind telling us real quick what it is that's going to happen on Thursday.
Fast food workers from all over the United States get together once again on strike for $15 an hour. It's going on Thursday. Going on Thursday.
And there's two locations where supporters can come out and add their presence to the many fast food workers who are actually walking off their jobs.
Yes.
I have the locations here. Do you have them?
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
Okay, because I know you're at work, taking a break, trying to just give us a little information before you have to go back inside. So the information I have is this Thursday. The first one is at 6 a.m. in the morning, and that's at 912 Martin Luther King Jr. Drive Southwest. And that'll last, it'll last a good hour, or maybe a little more, hour and a half. And again, there'll be people with signs and chanting and bullhorns and trying to engage the folks that are on their way to work, that here are workers, at this location who barely make enough money to survive, and it's important that everybody who's a worker support every other worker. And then the second location I've got is 11 a.m. at 23 Joseph E. Lowry Southwest. And that'll probably be a larger protest, a larger turnout, just because it isn't 6 in the morning. So those are the two locations that the fast food workers of ATL Raise Up will be at. And so can you maybe make a pitch for folks to come out and support you?
Yeah, you just got to realize it's not just fast food workers. There's straight to 25, but you can work at gas.
Oh, Antwon, we just lost you. All right.
Take all your taxes.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, I think, I don't know if it's your cell phone, but we didn't hear part of what you said.
Oh, I said, it don't just affect fast food workers, it affects everybody in whole, whether you're a taxpayer or whether you're making $10, $15 an hour already. It affects you. The rest of it go to food stamps, Medicaid, Medicare, all types of things that our money should be spent on. Not just working class people, putting on the government.
So let me just ask you this question. Oh, let me first see whether Tamieka or Paul have a question, and then I've got one more. I don't know how much time you've got left on your break, but we'll try to get one more question in.
Yeah, I have a question. Antwon, so the fast food worker organizing that you've been leading here in Atlanta, do you see a connection to what's happening in Ferguson now between these two movements?
Yeah, it goes back to underprivileged people, underpaid workers. You have no money and you have no food. It's easy for you to make bad decisions. It's a poor neighborhood. Very poor neighborhood, which is policed by people that don't understand the life struggles of people. Period. You know, it's just how it is. And it ain't got to be that way, but we can change it.
Thank you.
I have a question. So in these 2 years, I think it's been about 2 years that you've been active with ATL Raise Up. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. So I just want to ask this question because I think one of the things that's so remarkable is how so lots of times workers that do service jobs are really disrespected and really marginalized. People feel that you don't really have anything to offer society because you're in this low-wage job. And I just wanted to remark that so many of the people that I've had the opportunity to meet here by hosting and being on the labor forum, whether they be domestic workers, home health care workers, domestic workers, fast food workers, warehouse workers, janitors, and I could go on and on. All the people who, in so many ways, garbage workers, all the people who provide the services that sort of keep the society from the standpoint of health and taking care of people. The remarkable both analytical abilities, the understanding, the ability to express what your conditions are, and more importantly, the courage and the desire to make a change. So I just wanted to compliment you on that, but I also wanted to ask you sort of a personal question. From where you were 2 years ago, how do you feel being engaged in this struggle? And given the opportunities, you've traveled, you've been on television, you've been on the radio. How has that changed you personally?
It's joyful. I mean, I'm happy to do the things that I'm doing. I mean, somebody needs to step up and speak about the things. I mean, the weight been paid for me already. You had activists like Martin King and Jesse Jackson and others that gave their lives for me to do what I'm doing now. So it's an honor to me.
So how does your family respond?
My family we've always been political. We've always been voting. I mean, they love it. They want to participate too, but they don't live in this state, so it's a little bit harder for them. They understand. They love it. They coach me to keep on going on.
Antwon, what's your experience been organizing other fast food workers?
It ain't been easy, but I like it. I like it. I mean, it gives me an opportunity to get folks and let them know their rights and what they can do.
Antwon, are the issues the same? Whatever chain you're working for, besides the low wages, are the issues in terms of dignity and respect the same?
Yeah. I mean, they're the same no matter where you go, no matter what restaurant you go to or what gas station you pull up to or what mall you go to, they're all the same. You're all underpaid. You're all underappreciated. You're tired of it.
I wanted to ask you a follow-up question because the strength of this movement, I believe, has really shaken the powers that be. There is certainly discussion about how negotiations might be taking place with McDonald's to sort of create a national pay standard that would apply to many of these corporate chains, the ones that make literally millions, if not billions of dollars in profit off of your low wages. So I was wondering if you have a comment about you don't work for McDonald's, you work for two other chains, but how you see focusing on McDonald's in particular.
I think what McDonald's is doing, the idea of raising the wage is great, but what they're trying to raise it to is still unacceptable, especially when other countries that have established themselves there, like Germany and Australia, where they're paying their employees $18 an hour, just going to give us 10. It's not fair. So I don't understand it. So again, it's misdirection and miseducation. So 10 is not enough. 15.
Yeah, so
15 cents to it though.
I'm sorry, I talked over you. What did you just say?
I say other countries, McDonald's are paying their employees $18, $17 an hour. Well, over here in the States, they're paying us $7.25 and saying it's too much. Like I said, it's misdirection and miseducation. It's the tool that they're using. So 10 is not enough. It's not. Other countries understand the same thing. That's not enough. That's why they pay their employees 18, 17, 20. Well, over here in the States, they pay us $7.25 when it was first established over here. So it's not fair.
Antwon, you've been working at both of these positions for 14 years. What kind of access do you have to benefits, if any? Can you just outline that for us?
None. The only benefit I may have is that Popeye called the benefit where they have leftovers. You can take the leftovers home. Other than buying it, I can't afford it. So that's the only benefit I have is you get to keep the leftovers that they have. So if you call that a benefit,
Right. Right.
So the Popeye's chicken that is sitting there for a long time and left over, you can take it home. I see.
yeah. I mean, so it's no benefit. I mean, this is where they're getting they raises and promotions, and they're getting it from cutting the people that makes Popeyes, that makes McDonald's. So without us, there's none of these chains, none of these McDonald's.
And they think the leftover chicken is going to pay your utilities,
Yeah,
put your children through school, pay for clothes.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's unfair. There's no purpose in the things that it's immoral. There's no explanation why they do the things they do. But they use the general public to fight their own battles. Like you have people that are saying that $15 is too much for them to make, and they make it $7.25 an hour. They give a person making $7.25 an hour, make them a manager, and they not even make $8.75. So they'll think that they don't do something or have something. But really, they don't. They make extra $34 on their check, and they're still in the same hole. So, like I say, it's a lot of misdirection, miseducation that they use.
And I would even say it's also a decline in unions and union busting that's been deliberate and intentional for the last several decades.
Right.
It's not a coincidence that we see a decline in unions and we see also a decline in wages and benefits. So I know that part of what you are doing is fighting for $15 an hour. A larger part of it, as I hear it, as I organize nannies and housekeepers and home care workers, is also fighting for dignity and respect for the work that you do. And so can you tell me a little bit about organizing for a union? What are your hopes?
I hope that I pray that what we're doing is, I know what we're doing is for a great cause. I pray that it happens a little bit faster, but if it don't, that's cool. But I think every job should have a union. So you can have that respect without asking for it. You can have that raise without asking for it. You can have the things that you should have as an employee without asking for it. That's what a union does. It helps gain your confidence and that won't be taken from you. So you walk in the door with your confidence, with your raises, your promotions, and things that's promised to you. So working with the union, I think everybody should join the union. It's the American way.
Thank you, Antwon. Thank you. We really do appreciate it. Did you need to go back into work, or can we have a few more minutes of your time?
Oh, you go ahead. I'm free a little bit, about 10 more minutes.
10 more minutes, wonderful. Okay, so is this the fourth strike? I have to tell you, I'm losing track.
I think it's the fifth.
The
I think it's
fifth.
the fifth strike.
Okay, so this movement started, I think, in just a few cities, and at the very beginning, in large part, there were not that many actual fast food workers who were engaged in it. Essentially, it was people who thought that fast food workers should have more, and then that gave the courage to literally thousands of fast food workers across the country to become involved. Did you go to Chicago when they did that action against the?
Yes.
Okay, well, talk about that, because my recall is that was a couple thousand fast food workers who converged on McDonald's headquarters.
Oh, no, I didn't go to.
Oh, you didn't go to that one.
I went to another one that was in Chicago conference that had thousands of other fast food workers from all over the United States. We all got together. This is right before we went on the strike on September.
Okay.
So yeah, it's thousands of us. Yes. It's more coming. So this movement is bigger and bigger. It's not, like I say, it's not just fast food workers. It's not just people that work. It's tired people. We all have the idea that we're all people. We're all citizens. We all deserve to have a decent living. And that's one big thing, like I say, that goes back to Ferguson. So people don't have opportunity to live. You know, they can't live. They act out of anger. That's why they got police and patrol them areas, because they don't have decent income. They don't have nothing to look up to, nothing to wake up for. So that's what we're fighting for. That's what one step that we can take is make this money in.
So I see the other connection, of course, with the Walmart workers who've also been really in the forefront of this, because when you look at the big corporations, Walmart and the Walton family, so extraordinarily wealthy, just unbelievable, beyond almost anybody's imagination of how anybody could spend this money in a million years. And so I know that at the Walmart action that took place this past Friday on what they call Black Friday, this big shopping day, that all across the country Walmart workers were joined by fast food workers, joined by the youth that have taken the lead on the fight against hyper-policing, racial profiling, and of course the murder of Michael Brown and so many other youth. And so, as somebody who's here in the studio now, speaking with you, this just seems to me to be the dawn of truly a new day in terms of who's going to be leading the fight for workers' rights and a much broader concept of workers' rights beyond just, getting a decent wage. It's really about the entire quality of life.
Right. I agree, because it's one full circle.
Yeah, so it's not just about what happens on your job, it's what happens in your neighborhood, it's what happens in your school. It's the right to transportation, it's clean air, and most importantly, I think the right to security, which for people all around the world means the absence of war as well.
Yeah, the Declaration of Independence, the right to pursue happiness. How can you pursue anything broke on flat tires? How can you pursue anything and you're being beat? How can you pursue anything and you're concentrating on trying to survive day to day? Man, there's no way you can pursue happiness. That's our right as Americans. I'm supposed to have forgotten.
So Antwon, one more time, I'm going to repeat these times for this. It's this Thursday, December 4th, and this is a National Day of Action. And so all across the country, fast food workers are going to be joined, as I said, by Walmart workers, by all kinds of other low-wage workers, and by youth who have taken this issue of racist police and police violence and police terror to a new level here in this country. Everybody will be coming out, hopefully here in Atlanta, at 6 a.m. at 912 Martin Luther King Jr. Drive Southwest. And I have to say, I don't know what kind of fast food location that is. Does anybody here know? No? So whatever it is, there's a fast food outlet at 912 Martin Luther King Jr. Drive Southwest, and that's at 6 a.m. this coming Thursday, a couple of days from now. And then again at 11 a.m. At 23 Joseph E. Lowry Southwest. And I don't know, I believe that's a McDonald's, but I'm not positive. So, Antwon, do you have any of the website information or contact information for ATL Raise Up?
I'll give me 1 second.
Okay.
Facebook. You go to Facebook, and we on Facebook. You can contact us on Facebook. And it's ATL Raise Up.
Yeah. And there's a Facebook event page that you also can go to and get this information that I just gave. So Antwon, unless we have one more question from our co-hosts here, Paul and Tamieka, we want to really thank you for taking your break. And you know how valuable a break is when you're standing on your feet and dealing with customers and cooking and bosses and speed up and all the rest. So we want to really thank you for calling us here at WRFG 89.3 FM.
Thank you.
And we'll see you. We'll see you Thursday.
Thursday.
See you
All right.
Thursday.
Thank you, Antwon.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, so we want to just repeat some of the other activities that are important to workers, your communities, that are coming up this week. So we'll start again with Tamieka, who has some of the information about tonight's program, and then we'll go to Paul, the other event that's taking place on Thursday.
Thank you. So tonight there is a community public forum discussing how to bridge the gap between our communities and the police, and to discuss the militarization of the police. The event is at Ebenezer Baptist Church, 400 Auburn Avenue, Atlanta, Georgia, 30312, 6 p.m. And Attorney General Eric Holder will be a guest speaker. Tonight, there will be some conversation and education around the fast food worker organizing and the December 4th strike. This education is happening today at 5 p.m. at 60 Walton Street, 30303 on the 3rd floor. For more information, you can contact the ATL Raise Up lead organizer, Joel Solo, at joel.solo@gmail.com, joel.solow@gmail.com.
And then Paul, you want to give us the information on that busy Thursday, so 6 a.m., 11 a.m., and then?
At 1:30 at the MARTA board meeting, 2424 Piedmont in Atlanta at the Lindbergh Station. Will be demanding that the MARTA board not privatize the service that the disability community depends on.
Let me ask you real fast, I think we have a couple minutes left. Now, a contract was finally negotiated, is that correct, between the transit union work and the management of MARTA?
That is also on the agenda for the board meeting to sign off on the contract that was ratified by the union.
So in other words, this contract doesn't go into effect until this MARTA board accepts it as well?
There's a negotiation between management and the union, and when the vote is then brought to the members for ratification, after that it's approved. I think it's a formality by the MARTA board.
And in my recall of what the ATU members told us is that they hadn't had a raise in for like forever.
Yeah, close to 8 years, I think.
8 years. All right, folks, we appreciate you tuning in to 89.3 FM to the Labor Forum here. We also want to remind you that you always can hear not just this program, but every program on WRFG on our mobile app and also online at wrfg.org. And for those of you who are interested, you can actually watch Paul, Tamieka, and I on the program on the Labor Forum YouTube channel, and we encourage you to do that as well. So this is Dianne Mathiowetz
Tamieka Atkins.
And Paul McLennan.
saying goodbye for today, and we will be back again next Monday. I want to remind you again that WRFG has 2 fundraisers coming up. Our sing-along this coming Sunday at the Helium Center in Candler Park from 3 to 5. And then, of course, the Carnival of Cultures, which is our December 21st event, which is at the Solarium, and that is 2 to 5. And that'll have live music, great food, all kinds of good things to bid on, both in a silent and live auction, and just enjoying the diversity that we here at WRFG represent. Bye-bye.